I'm not 22. Anyway, so this lessons learned in blood, right? There's this famous quote. I don't know if you've heard it before, and I couldn't pinpoint exactly where it came from, but it's lessons not learned in blood are soon forgotten. Basically just meaning what Mikey said, right? Our worst failures sometimes can be really good lesson givers, right? Really good teachers. And gosh, when I first talked to Mikey about me speaking tonight, I was going to do something completely different. But in prayer and as it got closer, we were like, man, like this is maybe, one of the last chances I have being here at the Wesley to just tell you some of the biggest things that I learned. And so hopefully, knowing that what I went through, you can not make as many mistakes. You know what I mean? Honestly. So we're going to go back in time to a much younger Ben Nabours, right? So this is 10 years ago, this kid, right? I know I don't look that much different. I just had longer hair. But I promise you, 10 years ago, right? This was me in high school. And so snapshot of me from this time. Not like that snapshot, but I'm about to give you like a verbal snapshot, right? So this kid was the co-captain of a youth ministry team that planned and led church camps, right? Which is pretty cool. And so these were church camps that I went to like every summer, starting from when I was like 6 years old, right? Well, at the same time, I was also double-minded, and I was out like partying almost every weekend with my friends. And I remember going to the last church camp set up, and I had a hangover, and I was trying to hide it while we were like carrying things in. Horrible experience. And that specific church camp, I'll never forget a moment that I had near the end of that week when we were in the deepest worship night, and leaders are kind of spread around the room, and this girl came up to me, like another student, and she wanted to talk to a leader because she said she was struggling with what she believed or not, and she just felt like she was going through the motions, and she needed to talk to a leader to iron things out. And something snapped in me, and I was like, whoa, I can't talk to her because I'm also just going through the motions. I don't even know if I should be a leader right now, And so like I was like, oh, there's a leader over there, no, don't look at me. Like I said, this was a defining moment for me. And so I graduate from high school, a little bit more time goes by. I end up at the W.T. Wesley Foundation, where you're at right now, sitting in a seat at Tupos. Holla, So, and man, a lot of things happen, but it was like every word was spoken to me at that first Tupos, and the second one and the third one, and I was like, whoa, God is like calling out to me, this is crazy. And I had learned a lot of knowledge about the Bible, about Jesus, about God, about a lot of different things, and I knew sort of what my parents believed, and I knew the gist of what my church believed. I was starting to learn what the Wesley believed, but I didn't know what I believed yet, right? And so this kind of brings me to number one here, which is know what you believe. And like I said, I didn't really know what I believed. And it's funny, nowadays, the media especially is constantly telling us what to believe, right? And it's really easy sometimes to just pick up someone else's beliefs and just assume that those are your own beliefs. And it may not be till way later on that you're like, whoa, where did I even hear that? I don't even believe that, right? And it's kind of this crazy process. And so I began at that time, because I decided, this thing, the Wesley, this place that was new to me at the time, I decided if I'm really going to step up, if I'm going to commit to this, if I'm going to be a part of this, I want to know what I believe, right? And I was at this point where I was like, well, I know that our culture kind of tells me that having faith is dumb. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that. I'd heard that to have faith really was ignorant, that only dumb people or morons being blissfully ignorant or whatever really had real faith. And I had met atheists that were very intelligent, reasonable, and logical people. But what blew me away was that I also knew a lot of Christians who were very intelligent, logical, reasonable people. And I was like, whoa, there's something there, right? And so I went on this quest of belief. And I was going to Tupos, I was going to Fusion at the time, and I had awesome leaders like Scott Cooper pouring into me. He's somewhere out there. And it was just this crazy, well, to explain it a better way, I would say I had this idea in my mind, and I was like, I want to be a part of this. I want it to be real. And I thought, if someone came up to me that knew nothing about the gospel, nothing about Jesus, nothing about the Bible, and they asked me, hey, why do you believe this? You know, why do you believe that Jesus is important to believe in? Why do you want to have a relationship with him? Why do you believe that the Bible is like a worthy source of truth? And if that would have happened to me at the time, I would have had no idea what to tell them. I would have no clue to be able to explain anything, right? But I knew that there was something there. And so one of the big points for me was in our Fusion group, we went through this book called Case for Christ, which I'm not going to get into too much. Super good story if you've never read it. It's about a guy who is a reporter, essentially is an atheist, and through years of research, he becomes a Christian, right? And that's kind of what I went through. I went through this process of just researching and studying and talking to leaders that I could get a hold of and just figuring out what was it that I believed and why. And so anyway, my first semester at the Wesley at that point begins to near its end, and I realized, whoa, I know what I believe now. I could totally explain this to someone. Like, I knew why, I knew what. And I just want to quickly point out that it wasn't one like quickly defining moment that was just like, boom, now you know it, right? It wasn't like God just instantly poured all this knowledge into me all at once and it was like a miracle. This was something that happened over a progression of time. This was something that took a little bit, but then I realized in that moment, looking back, that this progression had happened and that God had done something in me, right? And that the leaders who had been pouring into me, Mikey's sermons, all these things, my research, and then I knew what I believed. And so it wasn't a change of scenery that I needed to like be real with my beliefs. And it wasn't that I just needed to not be in high school and come to college. It wasn't any of those things. It was this progression that happened over time. And I guess for me, it was hard to fully commit without knowing what I believed. So leadership interview happened at the end of my first semester at the Wesley. I was now a Wesley leader by title, right? And then this brings me to the second point, which is live what you believe. And for me, this was the bloodiest lesson, you could say. Once you know what you believe, you have to once you know what you believe, you have to live what you believe, right? You needed to apply it to your life. So I'm now this Christian leader on paper, but if you remember going back, I was already a leader, and it didn't work out that great, right? And so being a leader doesn't mean a lot. It is a title, but it doesn't give you any real influence. It doesn't give you anything more than just that authority, right? And so, like I said, it wasn't a new thing, and now I knew what I believed, which I didn't before. So now I know what I believe. Problem was I didn't apply it to my life. It didn't become real to me. And so I would say that I was lazy, careless, irresponsible, but I was cool, right? This is this next picture. This is this guy, right? And he was a cool guy, okay? He's now a leader at the Wesley, this place that he loves to be at. He's had a lot of fun there. And he's the cool guy, you know? And you know the cool guy. You guys know the cool guy, which you don't really want to be the cool guy. The cool guy is like, oh, whatever, dude. Whatever, man. Yeah, I don't even care. Like, whatever. There are people laughing because they knew me back then. And they know that attitude, right? And so the cool guy, or the cool girl, I guess. You could be a girl too and be wrong, I guess, about this. But it's like, oh yeah, sitting at the Wesley, yeah, I have class in 10 minutes, guys. It's so crazy. I might not even go. I don't even care. Whatever. Like, I know 2 posts is tonight, but like, I don't know, I might go, but if something better happens, then, I'm going to do the better thing because whatever. And it's this horrible lie, I think, that we tell ourselves. And guys, can I tell you something? Being the cool guy or the cool girl is not cool. It's not cool at all. It's horrible. And I can tell you this because it's been me so many times. But what the cool guy actually is lazy, scared, probably insecure. The cool guy wants you to think that he's cooler than he is, so he acts like he doesn't care, right? But in reality, this cool guy feels bad about themselves, so they want you to think that they're better than they think they are. And so it's a sad thing. And a snapshot of me from that time is staying up late, sleeping in, skipping class. I had classes where I would only show up to the first class, the midterm, and the final. More than one. And like, this guy was much less of a leader than it looked like on paper, is the best way to explain it. And so I'm on lead. I'm a Fusion co-leader with a brand new Fusion group that had just opened up in Jarrett Hall. And Fusion back then, the Fusion leaders would plan their whole lesson. And so I was like helping plan these lessons, and I was on multiple resource teams. I was newly in Scott Cooper's mentoring, which was awesome. But I wasn't fully committed to any of these things. I didn't fully live out my beliefs. Like I said, I was a leader by title, but I wasn't always doing what I should have done influentially as a leader. I was being lazy, and I was acting like it was a strength, calling it being flexible or being relaxed. Imagine you're on a raft in like a river. If any of you have gone whitewater rafting, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're sitting in this raft, and the river current is like going. You can't stop it. You can't really work too much against it. And you could probably just lay back in your raft, hang out, and you would get down the river, right? More than likely. You wouldn't have to do much. You could just go with the flow. But like also, if any of you have been whitewater rafting, you never do that. I mean, 99% of the time you don't do that because the current's also very dangerous, and it can drag you right into some jagged rocks, or it could throw you out of your raft. It could even possibly pull you underwater and make you drown. The current isn't something you should just be like going with, you know? You have your oars, and instead it's like, oh, let me paddle, right? You don't paddle against the current because, like I said, you would probably just stay in one place if, at best. But you use the direction you have to intentionally go from one side of the river to the other to dodge these, bad places, I guess. To dodge the rocks, the things like that. And life is more similar to that than you'd think. Sometimes we think it's easy just to go with the flow, right? And to not have intentionality, but that's the exact opposite thing that a leader needs to be doing. Lucky for me at the time, I had really amazing, loving Christian leaders around me, like this, right? Cooper. It was funny. I'm very much more of a thinker. Cooper was more of a feeler. He was my mentor. He was always hugging me and telling me he loved me. He's like, kinfolk, kinfolk, you know that I love you, right? Yeah, yes, Cooper. Thank you. I love you too, man. Seriously, kinfolk, I love you. I got it. That's kind of our mentoring relationship for a while, right? Like, yeah, I love you too, Cooper. Okay. But for real, best hugs in the world, right? And so, like I said, I had been at 2 posts. I'm a leader at this point. Leader, right? So I'm a leader at this point. I'm being poured into, and I am being mentored, and I'm still growing, but I'm stunting my own growth because I'm not really being intentional. I'm not living out my beliefs. You could say I was in selfie mode, and we have to get out of selfie mode. I don't know if anyone relates to this, if you've ever been like, oh, something cool is happening, whatever, or you're going to take a picture of something, you pull your phone out, and you go to snap the picture, and you're surprised you see yourself on the screen. Oh, turn it off of selfie mode, right? And so the funny thing is we do that in our lives. We do this exact same thing where our phone camera only can see our faces. Sometimes we're only seeing ourselves in our life. We're like, well, it's my life. It's about me, right? So maybe I should live it for me. But if you know anything about Christianity and about what Jesus said, obviously that's not necessarily true, right? And tonight, I want you to check and see if you might be in selfie mode sometimes. It's funny because you would think it would be obvious, but it's not always obvious. Sorry, something's going on. You would think it would be obvious. You think you would just know, like, well, I'm in selfie mode, but we're not robots, right? We're not machines, and we get subjective, and we don't even realize we've been in selfie mode for however long. And these are some questions you can say, am I doing these things just for me? Like, am I hanging out with people at the ministry? Am I going to Tupos? Am I worshiping the Lord? Am I praying? Am I doing these things just for me? Do you actually love Christ? Do you actually love others? Or is this just to feel good? Is it just to have fun? Is it maybe just to make sure that you make it into heaven, right? You're like, I've heard that heaven's the best choice. I don't want to go to hell, right? But I guess I have to believe or whatever I have to do, right? But are you genuinely trying to help build up his kingdom? Are you genuinely sharing the gospel with others? Because you're like, dude, this is truth. This is life. I need to share this with you. So how do we turn off selfie mode? First off, you have to not be the cool guy, right? Don't be the cool guy, the cool girl. It's funny. It's like you can imagine at like a pool party, and like the cool guy is like has a shirt off and is like laying over on one of the chairs. Doesn't get in the water. Is just tanning or whatever, hanging out. Doesn't want to get in the water, mess up their makeup or their hair. Makeup if they're a girl, right? I don't wear makeup. And so it's funny, like, the cool guy isn't the one that's jumping in the pool and having fun and making the pool party a party. Like, if everyone was just being the cool guy, it would be super lame, right? If you think about that, it's funny. It's like we have to jump into the pool, get involved, and, like, dive in. And so the secret way, which I know you Wesley leaders, you think you've heard this before, but you haven't. You haven't heard it this way. So the way to not be in selfie mode is to be fat, all right? You got to get fat. Faithful, available, and teachable, all right? So faithful. What does it mean to be faithful? That word gets thrown around a lot, but I would say you need to just commit yourself to the Lord. And commit's a pretty deep word. That's pretty intense. And so you have to put your yes on the table and then not take it off for any reason, right? It's not a feeling. It's not just a motivation, but it's saying, like, you know what, Lord, I believe that this stuff is real, right? You know what you believe, and you're going to live out your beliefs. And you say, yeah, I'm going to live out these beliefs, Lord. I'm going to put my yes on the table, and I'm not going to take it off for any reason. That's like, well, sometimes you're going to have to get up early to, like, I don't know actually if you have to get up early for the Wesley. Maybe a bad example. But it's maybe like, oh, well, I'm going to have to, like, go to two-post setup and help set up all this stuff. Oh, man, I'm going to have to help tear down. Even though two-posts might go late, I'm not going to get in bed until at least maybe midnight, I guess. I don't know, God. Maybe I'll just take the yes off the table just for, like, two-post setup and stuff, but then I'll put it back when we worship, right? Or maybe you're like, I'm going to have to get up and go to church on Sundays. We basically have church on Tuesday nights. Maybe I'll just take my yes off the table for the weekend so I can hang out with my friends, stay up late, not go to church on Sundays, because who cares anyway, right? And then I'll put my yes back on the table. Like, I think a good way to really get that commitment is think of it like a marriage, right? We're the bride of Christ. What if in a marriage, the husband is like, yo, my yes is totally on the table. I'm in love with you. But then, like, 6 months in, he's like, I'm going to pull my yes off the table for just a little bit because I met this other girl that's cute. And then I'll put my yes back on the table next week. Or, like, the same thing if the woman is like, well, I did have my yes on the table, but, like, you, like, never wash your dishes, and you leave your dirty laundry all over the house. I'm going to pull my yes off the table until you figure that stuff out. Then I'll come and be married to you, right? Like, it's a ridiculous thought if we think of it that way, but sometimes when we think of it with God, we're down to just do him dirty, right? And so that's the first thing, right? Putting your yes on the table and saying, I'm going to be a part of your ministry, God. I'm going to be a part of your kingdom building. I'm going to actually have a relationship with you, even whenever I don't necessarily feel like it, right? So the second one is available. What will you remember when you graduate? I could tell you from experience because I did that. And when I look back, you're not going to remember any of the great, awesome, big things God did in your life, and you're not going to remember, sorry, that's kind of backwards. You aren't going to look back and think, oh, look at these awesome, big things God did, or look at all the fun I had, the great friends that I made, if you're just watching Netflix, right? And in the same way, maybe you're like, well, I'm just going to go like take this 3-hour nap for the afternoon every day. Like, those aren't the things you're going to look back and remember. What you're going to look back and remember are the times that you got up off the chair, stopped being the cool guy, you jumped in the water. Because I can look back and I don't regret any of the things I did. I mostly just regret the times that I stayed in my room and played video games, or I stayed in my room and watched Netflix, or the times that I slept in until noon, which was way too often, right? Like, those are the times that I regret more than anything on this side of it. And I know that right now out there, you may think like, well, there are a ton of tuposes, like 13 a semester. I'm not going to like be upset if I miss like 3 or 4 of those a semester, right? But when you're on my side, you're going to look back and wish that you had never missed a single tupos. You're going to look back and you're going to wish that you hadn't missed a single mentoring session. You're going to look back and you're going to wish that there was still fusion going on in your life, or that you still could have that mentor and meet with them every week. Because if you're lucky, you'll have lunch with them once a month or something like that, and you're going to savor that time. You're going to look back and you're going to feel so sad that you couldn't be there more often, right? And so don't forget to make yourself available now when you have the time. And don't do what's easy just for the sake of ease, but make yourself available, the A, available, and become a part of the body of Christ. And the T, as you all know, is teachable. I keep looking at the screen and I realize I forgot to put F-A-T, fat. So anyway, teachable. Guys, can I tell you a secret? It's kind of hard to hear it, but it's a fact and it's true. You are not the very best at anything, and you pretty much never will be. No matter how good you think you are, no matter how smart, and this goes for me as well. This is something that I always remind myself of because I think it's so imperative to have a good, healthy life in general. Whether you think you're the best at something or you're the smartest, like someone in the world, probably even in this room, is better at it. Someone is smarter. Someone has had more experience with whatever it is. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't make you less. I think a lot of our generation was always told you can do anything you put your mind to and all these things, which you can do a lot of things if you put your mind to it. But it's always good to remember that someone is smarter and someone is better and someone's been around the block once, twice, 1,000 times if you're thinking about the Wesley staff. And so don't forget your mentor. They may not be that much older, but they can teach you something. And if you ever get into the mindset that you can't learn anything from anyone, you're just going to back yourself into a corner and you're just going to have a bad time at everything. If you want to be a true learner, someone that, is going to be looked at as someone that's smart, someone has it together, someone that has experience, you've got to get out there and learn things from other people because that's the best way to learn. And especially, Mikey and Carrie and the rest of the Wesley staff and your mentor and the people that God has placed above you in leadership, I promise, have something awesome to teach you if you will just be humble enough to learn. And so be teachable. Gosh, always be teachable. And this, if I could go back and tell myself one main biggest thing, or even like slap myself from 10 years ago, this is what I would say. Always be teachable. Always be teachable. And so the guy from those pictures, by the grace of God, somehow turned off selfie mode, somehow began to be others focused, and stopped looking at what God could do for him, and instead said, hey, what can I do for God? What can I do for others? And so these are those pictures here. Like, this guy made awesome friendships. Met Andy Mineo, which is pretty cool. You can go faster through them. And so, like, awesome friendships with the mentor ring. Led fusion groups. Danced. Painted up with Maroon Platoon and did the haka. Did that, whatever that is. Got up on stage, was able to host events with the Wesley, became parts of sermon series, rode off-road segways, hiked up into the mountains, met my, soon-to-be wife. I was a part of mentor rings, right? I was mentored and I mentored others. And looking back, I don't regret a single second of any of the time that I spent being a part of something bigger than myself. And there are so many things that aren't in those pictures. Those are all like these snapshots of activities, but it doesn't show the hundreds of conversations with other students, them pouring into me or me being able to pour down into them. And it doesn't count the hours and hours of deep discipleship, the countless meetings, the staff meetings, the meetings with resource teams, the meetings where we were building a ministry for the Lord. It doesn't show, all the times we're meeting to figure out, how to figure out the next problem of the live stream. All these moments that, looking back, there would have shaped me, there would have formed me. And I remember just before I graduated, we had a guest speaker, Bo Newarner, and he was like, Ben, dude, what did you do to grow and to learn so much more about the Lord, to grow closer to the Lord? What did you do? And it was at that moment that I took a step back and I was like, well, whoa, I didn't even know what to say, but it was in one of those moments again where this hadn't happened overnight, but it was this progression of moments where I kept my yes on the table. It was this progression of moments where I was not in selfie mode, this progression where I had let people teach me and I had been a part of something bigger than myself, and I was like, God, whatever you have, I'm down for it. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing that I think, looking back, that I did is I relinquished my pride, and I did it for the kingdom. I relinquished control to the Lord, and I let him see, where he would take me. It was intentional. And I would say the biggest thing there is that I lived my beliefs. Because we can't actually believe something and not live it. It actually doesn't make sense if you think about it. Our beliefs influence our behavior. And so if you really believe something, your behavior will change. A great example is if you really believed that I put $100 taped to the bottom of one of the chairs tonight, and you really believed that, you'd be looking, right? And so what's the difference there if we say, well, I really believe that God has the best rules for us. I really believe that it will be better for me if I try to stray away from sin and I try to run toward God. I really believe that, but I'm not doing any of it. It doesn't make sense. It's this cognitive dissonance. And that brings me to the third point here, which is it's probably the easiest to say, but it's the hardest to do, which is continue to stand firm in what you believe. So back to that guy in those pictures from years ago. Time went on, and Fusion co-leader became cell leader, like the main dude who's leading the group. And being just an apprentice in Cooper's mentoring became being a mentor for other younger students. Being on leadership team, eventually when I graduated, I joined the Wesley Academy, and then I became a staff member, right? And then I even kept going up, and I was faithful with little, and the Lord gave me much, which sounds awesome, and it's great. All those things are really good. But that being said, discipleship isn't easy. It's actually very, very difficult. And those pictures, just as they didn't show the moments of discipleship and the moments of prayer and the moments of being poured into, they also didn't show all the moments of hardship. They didn't show the rough times, the betrayals, and the broken friendships. I was a leader in 5 different fusion groups, and a couple of those groups I struggled to even get my co-leaders to come to our fusion group, right? And then one of the groups, all the co-leaders just ditched, and I was left just there being the co-leader for this big group of just freshman guys and in Gunther Hall, you know? And some of you guys were in that group. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? And so worship team, you guys can go ahead and come up as well. And so, gosh, and remember, those were the years whenever Fusion leaders planned the whole lesson. And so this was all on my back, and it was super difficult. But like I said, I wouldn't take it back. And over that same amount of time, I had about 20 guys that I mentored at different times. And a little bit over half of those guys left my mentorings, either on bad terms or because they couldn't commit or because they had some sort of falling out with someone else. Some of them had fallouts with me. And it's this crazy time looking back and thinking like, man, that sucked, you know? I was the subject of rumors more than once. And I remember when I was an RA, I had a couple of semesters where residents, because they hated me, because they hated Jesus, they would vandalize my hall, they would break things, they stole things from me, and it was just this rough time. And all that to say, if you remember, Jesus said that it would be hard. He said that people would hate us because they hate him. It's true. It's true to this day. Our culture is against us in many ways. John 15, Jesus said, if the world hates you, know that he hated me know that it hated me before it hated you. You are one of the world, and if you are one of the world will love you as its own. Yet because you are not of the world, because I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. So don't be surprised, whenever you're going to get betrayed, maybe gossiped about, and it will hurt, but don't give up because God is there, right? And I'm here to tell you that you're not alone. You're not alone in any of this. And so all of that hardship, remember in Matthew 13, right? It's probably my notes. In Matthew 13, Jesus tells the parable of the farmer that's sowing seeds. And he talks about 4 different seeds, and one of those seeds out of the 4 is great, and it bears fruit, and it's awesome. The other 3 seeds, something happens along the way. And if you don't know that parable, totally go read it later. And it's really well explained in there. But man, that means 75% of those seeds, those metaphorical seeds that we plant when we're telling people about the gospel, 75% of them don't make it anywhere, which is like a bummer, right? But what if we flip that on its head and we say 25% of those people, those seeds will take root, and in 25% of those times, that person is going to truly have a connection with the Lord and is going to have their life changed. Is the hardship worth it with 25%? What if that was only 5%? What if that was just 1%? Man, is it worth it? Is it worth it to go through the hardships, to have the part of the world hate you because you're like Christ? Is it worth it if only 1% of those people that you talk to get saved? And guys, if you haven't felt this yet, Jesus says you will, right? You'll be persecuted in his name. And it's crazy to think that it will be difficult, And this goes out to especially, Mikey and Carrie. I know that it's hard. And it's a crazy thing to think that so many bad things can happen in ministry, and that all the different things that we're trying so hard to do to love people can turn their back on us. But man, just with you two, looking around at those seeds that have bared fruit is incredible. I love you guys, and I wouldn't be here, if Mikey hadn't have met me one night at the Buffalo Fountain my sophomore year, and then said, Cooper, keep an eye on that guy, basically. And so just remember that it's going to be hard sometimes, but you got to know what you believe, live it out, and stand firm in that. Stand firm in those beliefs because they're real and because you're putting your yes on the table with the Lord. And that's our calling, right? The Great Commission, he said, go and make disciples of all nations. And it's going to be hard. You'll be tempted to throw in the towel. You'll hear lies about your leaders. You'll probably hear lies about yourself, rumors and gossip. You'll become weary and beaten. And like I said, I'm here to tell you that you're not alone. Keep up the good work. Fight the good fight. Galatians 6:9 says, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we'll reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. And so tonight, you may be at anywhere along that journey that I've talked about. Maybe you're at a place where you aren't really sure what you believe, and that's okay. Or maybe you're at this place where you think that your beliefs might actually be from your parents, or you maybe think you just have your mentor's beliefs or Mikey's beliefs. And I want you to imagine yourself, if that person came up to you that knew nothing about the Lord, nothing about the gospel, they didn't know who Jesus was, and they asked you, why do you believe this stuff? What is it about Jesus that is good? Why is that important? And they said, why is the Bible important to you? Would you be able to answer them? And it's okay if the answer is no. But tonight, I urge you, right after I'm done talking, go make some plans. You may not be like me. Your personality may not be the type that's going to spend hours researching something. I think it's worth it, even if that's not your personality type, because this stuff is life and death, right? And so right after this, take some time, have some time of prayer with the Lord, be honest with yourself, meet up with some leaders, and make some plans to figure out what you believe. We take it all out, and like Mikey says, you take these beliefs out, and you throw whatever you can at them, and the true beliefs will stay standing. The Lord will stay standing. Promise. Or maybe you're at this next point where you know what you believe, but you haven't been living it out. Maybe you've been stuck in selfie mode. You didn't even realize it until right now. Maybe the Holy Spirit is just kind of tapping at you, and it's like, hey, you're not in this for me right now. And that's okay. But man, there's so much more out there when we get out of selfie mode, because the camera won't just be on us anymore. but we can see the whole world. And so if that's you tonight, I urge you during this next song to come down here and pray and be honest with God and just let him know you've been stuck in selfie mode and you want to change that. You want to be fat, right? You want to be faithful and available and teachable. Or maybe, you've had your yes on the table and you've been so tempted to take it off so many times. Maybe you have taken it off a little bit. Maybe you're at this point where you're beaten and you're bruised. You've been betrayed by friends, and you realize, man, Jesus, I don't know if I want the world to hate me the way it hated you. And if that's you, the Lord's here. And there are other leaders here. There are people that share that with you, and they will be with you. And there will be leaders around the room with glow sticks. And I also want to throw out an invitation. You may be here, and not only may you not know what you believe, but you might not know what any of this is about. You might have never given your heart to Christ at all. You might not even know how to do that, or how to read your Bible, or how any of that works. And there are leaders around the room. Well, there will be leaders around the room here in a moment. Go talk to one of them. They can answer whatever questions you have. And so during this next song here, come up if the Holy Spirit is gnawing at you. Spend some time in the Lord's presence. Father, I pray for these students. Lord, I pray that my lessons learned in blood would not have to be learned in blood for them, Lord, but that rather than going through the school of hard knocks, Father, that they could just realize what you're here for, and that what the Wesley is here for, God. Might your presence become more than just something they visit Tuesday nights, Lord. Might they encounter you in prayer? Might they put their yes on the table and just see what you can do, Lord? And Father, for those out there who are weary, who are beaten, Lord, Father, I pray you would put your hand over them. And I pray that you would open their eyes to the seeds they have planted. Open their eyes to the fruit that's come from those seeds, Lord. Let them see the people that have been connected with you because they said yes to you, God. And Lord, might we never be afraid to check ourselves in any of these things at any point. At no point have we made it. But at each stage, we might begin to falter in one way or another, Father. And I pray that you would remind us of your love, and you would remind us that you put the yes on the table for us before we were even born. In Jesus' name.